Chapters 3 and 4 of Book 7 of Les Misérables, Volume 4, by Victor Hugo. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Algie Pug. Les Misérables, Volume 4, by Victor Hugo. Translated by Isabel Florence Hapgood. Book 7, Slang. Chapters 3 and 4. Chapter 3. Slang which weeps and slang which laughs. As the reader perceives, slang in its entirety, slang of 400 years ago, like the slang of today, is permeated with that sombre, symbolical spirit which gives to all words a mien which is now mournful, now menacing. One feels in it the wild and ancient sadness of those vagrants of the court of miracles, who played at cards with packs of their own, some of which have come down to us. The 8 of clubs, for instance, represented a huge tree bearing 8 enormous trefoil leaves, a sort of fantastic personification of the forest. At the foot of this tree a fire was burning, over which 3 hares were roasting a huntsman on a spit, and behind him, on another fire, hung a steaming pot, whence emerged the head of a dog. Nothing can be more melancholy than these reprisals in painting, by a pack of cards, in the presence of steaks for the roasting of smugglers, and of the cauldron for the boiling of counterfeiters. The diverse forms assumed by thought in the realm of slang, even song, even raillery, even menace, all partook of this powerless and dejected character. All the songs, the melodies of some of which have been collected, were humble and lamentable to the point of evoking tears. The pègre is always the poor pègre, and he is always the hare in hiding, the fugitive mouse, the flying bird. He hardly complains, he contents himself with sighing. One of his moans has come down to us: "I do not understand how God, the Father of men, can torture his children and his grandchildren and hear them cry, without himself suffering torture." The wretch, whenever he has time to think, makes himself small before the low, and frail in the presence of society. He lies down flat on his face, he entreats, he appeals to the side of compassion. We feel that he is conscious of his guilt. Towards the middle of the last century, a change took place. Prison songs and thieves' ritournelles assumed, so to speak, an insolent and jovial mien. The plaintive mélure was replaced by the larifla. We find in the 18th century, in nearly all the songs of the galleys and prisons, a diabolical and enigmatical gaiety. We hear this strident and lilting refrain, which we should say had been lighted up by a phosphorescent gleam, and which seems to have been flung into the forest by a will-o'-the-wisp playing the fife. Mira l'habit sous la babo, mire les tons, ribon ribette, sous la babie, mire la babo, mire les tons, ribon ribot. This was sung in a cellar, or in a nook of the forest, while cutting a man's throat. A serious symptom. In the 18th century, the ancient melancholy of the dejected classes vanishes. They begin to laugh. They rally the grand Meg and the grand Daube. Given Louis XV., they call the King of France le Marquis de Pantin. And behold, they are almost gay. A sort of gleam proceeds from these miserable wretches, as though their consciences were not heavy within them any more. These lamentable tribes of darkness have no longer merely the desperate audacity of actions, they possess the heedless audacity of mind. A sign that they are losing the sense of their criminality, and that they feel, even among thinkers and dreamers, some indefinable support which the latter themselves know not of. A sign that theft and pillage are beginning to filter into doctrines and sophisms in such a way as to lose somewhat of their ugliness, while communicating much of it to sophisms and doctrines. A sign, in short, of some outbreak which is prodigious and near, unless some diversion shall arise. Let us pause a moment. Whom are we accusing here? Is it the 18th century? Is it philosophy? Certainly not. The work of the 18th century is healthy and good and wholesome. The encyclopedists, Diderot at their head, the physiocrats, Turgot at their head, the philosophers, Voltaire at their head, the Utopians, Rousseau at their head. These are four sacred legions. Humanity's immense advance towards the light is due to them. They are the four vanguards of the human race, marching towards the four cardinal points of progress: Diderot towards the beautiful, Turgot towards the useful, Voltaire towards the true, Rousseau towards the just. But by the side of and above the philosophers, there were the sophists, a venomous vegetation mingled with a healthy growth, hemlock in the virgin forest. While the executioner was burning the great books of the liberators of the century on the grand staircase of the courthouse, writers now forgotten were publishing, with the king's sanction, no one knows what strangely disorganizing writings, which were eagerly read by the unfortunate. Some of these publications, odd to say, which were patronized by a prince, are to be found in the secret library. These facts, significant but unknown, were imperceptible on the surface. Sometimes, in the very obscurity of a fact lurks its danger. It is obscure because it is underhand. Of all these writers, the one who probably then excavated in the masses the most unhealthy gallery was Restif à la Bretonne. This work, peculiar to the whole of Europe, effected more ravages in Germany than anywhere else. In Germany, during a given period, summed up by Schiller in his famous drama The Robbers, theft and pillage rose up in protest against property and labour, assimilated certain specious and false elementary ideas, which, though just in appearance, were absurd in reality, enveloped themselves in these ideas, disappeared within them, after a fashion, assumed an abstract name, passed into the state of theory, and in that shape circulated among the laborious, suffering, and honest masses, unknown even to the imprudent chemists who had prepared the mixture, unknown even to the masses who accepted it. Whenever a fact of this sort presents itself, the case is grave. Suffering engenders wrath, and while the prosperous classes blind themselves or fall asleep, which is the same thing as shutting one's eyes, the hatred of the unfortunate classes lights its torch at some aggrieved or ill-made spirit which dreams in a corner and sets itself to the scrutiny of society. The scrutiny of hatred is a terrible thing. Hence, if the ill fortune of the times so wills it, those fearful commotions, which were formerly called jacqueries, beside which purely political agitations are the merest child's play, which are no longer the conflict of the oppressed and the oppressor, but the revolt of discomfort against comfort, then everything crumbles. Jacqueries are the earthquakes of the people. It is this peril, possibly imminent towards the close of the 18th century, which the French Revolution, that immense act of probity, cut short. The French Revolution, which is nothing else than the idea armed with the sword, rose erect, and with the same abrupt movement closed the door of ill and opened the door of good. It put a stop to torture, promulgated the truth, expelled miasma, rendered the century healthy, crowned the populace. It may be said of it that it created man a second time, by giving him a second soul, the right. The 19th century has inherited and profited by its work, and today the social catastrophe to which we lately alluded is simply impossible. Blind is he who announces it. Foolish is he who fears it. Revolution is the vaccine of Jacquerie. Thanks to the Revolution, social conditions have changed. Feudal and monarchical maladies no longer run in our blood. There is no more of the Middle Ages in our constitution. We no longer live in the days when terrible swarms within made irruptions, when one heard beneath his feet the obscure course of a dull rumble, when indescribable elevations from mole-like tunnels appeared on the surface of civilization, where the soil cracked open, where the roofs of caverns yawned, and where one suddenly beheld monstrous heads emerging from the earth. The revolutionary sense is a moral sense. The sentiment of right, once developed, develops the sentiment of duty. The law of all is liberty, which ends where the liberty of others begins, according to Robespierre's admirable definition. Since '89, the whole people has been dilating into a sublime individual. there is not a poor man